Welcome to Talking Jazz. My guest today is Benjamin Koppel, and Benjamin is talking to me from Denmark, but he's known well beyond that, and we'll get to know him also today. So, welcome, Benjamin.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. You have a brand new album that we're going to talk about. It's called The Story of Mankind, a
Yes.
Requiem. There's a lot to talk about. But first of all, I don't think, well, us US jazz musicians, we're ignorant. We don't know that in Europe there are great jazz musicians. So give us a quick synopsis of Benjamin Koppel and how you got into jazz. And yeah,
Well,
pack it into
that's going to be a long story,
I know.
but I'll try to keep it short. Well, I was born in the 70s. I'm out of a big music family in Denmark. Almost all my relatives are musicians. I began playing drums when I was 5 years old, inspired by Bernard Purdie and Steve Gadd, both of whom I've got to know and work with later. But then I met the saxophone when I was 13 years old, and it totally stole my heart, and I just needed to play saxophone from that point forward. I released my debut album when I was 18. That was in 92. And I have released approximately, I think, 70 or 75 albums as a leader since then, and composing a lot of music. And I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with a number of my great music heroes. I've worked with and recorded with as a fellow musician with Phil Woods and Paul Bley and Charlie Mariano and Jim Hall and Lee Konitz and Joe Lovano and a lot of amazing musicians which have really inspired me. I've learned a lot from all these music meetings. I live in Copenhagen, Denmark, with my wife, our two daughters, and our two dogs. And I run my own production company and label entitled Cowbell Music. I produce and curate 2 annual jazz festivals in Copenhagen. I've been doing that for 15 years. I've also written a couple of books. I released my first novel 2 years ago, which has actually just been translated into German, and hopefully will be translated into English as well at some point. And it's going to be made into a theater play and a movie and everything. So that's a whole other ballgame. I have been the host of and producing around 200 radio shows as well. I love radio. So I've been doing a lot of different things, but music is at the core of my interest in life and my passion. And right now I'm in the midst of one of my annual jazz festivals. Last night I played 2 concerts. We performed this piece, Story of Mankind, live, as well as a concert, a tribute to Ornette Coleman, which I did with 3 American friends of mine, amazing musicians, Ralph Alessi, trumpet, bass player Scott Colley, and drummer Jeff Ballard. A lot of different things are going on, and I'm always on the lookout for new adventures, new possibilities to learn, really, and to invent new music. So I guess that kind of sums it up. I probably forgot a lot, but...
That makes you dizzy. You sound like me. So I would guess you're either born in June or December.
I am born in February. I am a fish.
For you, good
Yes.
for you. So because usually those hyperactive
Well,
ones.
I am probably kind of hyper. Or anyway, I think sleeping is a bit boring. I haven't got the patience to watch television, really. I'm missing out on a lot of TV series that all my friends always talk about, and I can't, I don't know the first thing about what they're talking about. That gives me a lot of time to walk the dogs and invent new projects. So I compose when I walk the dogs all the time.
Great strategy. So let's talk about, so we're going to start listening here to some music. And the first one we're going to listen to is Story of Mankind.
Yeah.
And you call it a requiem. So just give us a quick mindset for this first piece. We'll talk some more about the music, but the quick mindset for this first piece, how to listen to, and if you don't mind, share real quick. Then
I don't mind at all. Well, this piece, it's a title piece of the album, Story of Mankind. The whole piece was originally inspired by photographs by the great Danish World Press Photo winner, Jan Grarup, who has been back and forth to the front in Ukraine a number of times, depicting and documenting the horrors and the atrocities that are going on over there. And he took some pictures, which I saw, and some of his pictures were very much alike, almost one-to-one, with pictures from World War I. It was kind of the same trenches, the same burned trees, the same dead bodies, almost as if they were like set up the same way as these photographs that had been taken 100 years ago. And that made me think that war is war, and it's in the human DNA, and we have always been doing it, and we keep on doing it. And the war in its nature is totally alike as it was 100 years ago, even 1,000 years ago. The technology changes, the ability to kill even more people at a higher speed changes, but the very gruesome DNA of war is the same. And so I needed to do something about it. So and for me, writing music is my way of expression. I went to my bookshelves. I have a lot of books, and I've refound my books of and about Guillaume Apollinaire, the French poet who himself fought in World War I. and actually died from the wounds that he attracted in the trenches. And so I found some of his lyrics, curated them, took them out, and then I contacted a Danish friend, a very, very well-known and fantastic poet, Morten Søndergaard. He gave me some lines of words that could be used for this project. And then another friend, poetry slammer, Thomas T.T. Krag, he came to my summer house someday, and all of a sudden he just stood up and recited some of his poetry slamming. And some of those verses were heart-grasping. So I just took them, and one of those phrases was the story of mankind. So I took that, and that became the title of the album, the title of the War Requiem as it is. And it kind of set the atmosphere and the pace and the vibe for the whole piece, which is a long piece, 100 minutes. It's a 2 CD album. So it's a really big mastodon piece, but T.T. Krag's words kind of gave me a title for it.
Well, let's listen to this first one, and then let's talk a little bit more about the music and how to frame our minds around it. So here is the title track of The Story of Mankind, The Story of Mankind, a Requiem. And this is by my guest today, Benjamin Koppel, who you also hear on saxophone, and then a host of more instruments. Anybody featured here that we should mention?
Yeah, I mean, this is an album and a piece that I wrote for the Danish singer, Frederikke Vedel. She's a very good singer, and it's a kind of a stellar cast with my good friend and collaborator, Søren Møller, on keyboards and piano, Danish-Norwegian bassist, Johnny Åman. People might know him from his collaborations with Jerry Bergonzi, for instance. Drummer Ferenc Nemeth, Hungarian, New Yorker drummer who I've been working a lot with for the past 15 years. Amazing drummer. He was out of the Herbie Hank, the Thelonious Monk Institute, and was, has been playing with Herbie. Of course, the big star soloist is my dear old friend, trumpet player Randy Brecker, whom I recorded together with the first time in 1999. So it's actually 25 years ago since we met and recorded the first time. And he's featured on this album, and he's an amazing friend, an amazing musician, and an amazing personality. So he really helps getting the message for this piece out.
Perfect. Here's The Story of Mankind, a Requiem. Story of Mankind, a selection from a new album, a double album, by my guest today, Benjamin Koppel, who you also heard on saxophone. And we talked a little bit earlier about, focusing on the war pictures, being inspired by that. You mentioned some of the great musicians you're playing with, of course. So let's talk a little bit more about the music. So for example, this next one we're going to listen to, You Who Hear Us Now. How did the poetry and the images fold, for example, in this one?
Well, actually, now we heard the Story of Mankind, which is actually the closer of the set. It's the last song of the whole Requiem. Okay. And You Who Hear Us Now is the first one. So it's these words written by Guillaume Apollinaire, French poet, and it's kind of, he attracts everyone's attention to You Who Hear Us Now. Whoever wants to hear about the atrocities of war and what we're doing to each other as human beings and what we're doing to the planet as well. We are destroying in a fast pace our own possibilities of survival, really, the way we damage this planet. This is kind of a cry out to attract attention. Those you who hear us now, pay attention, because this is an important message. And whoever chooses not to listen are kind of doomed to keep on sailing in that direction, which will lead to, well, really the perish of humanity at some point if we keep on doing what we're doing, fighting each other and fighting the planet. So it is a kind of a cry of attention. This is important. You who hear us now, Apollinaire.
Let's hear this outcry and let's just listen to the music with that framework in mind. This is You Who Hear Us Now from the album.
Tu nous
That was You Who Hear Us Now, a selection from the new album, A Story of Mankind, a Requiem. And we already talked quite a bit about my guest today, Benjamin Koppel, who you also heard on saxophone and who composed the pieces. We talked a little bit about the music. This next one that we're going to lead to is Absurd, and it has a string quartet with it. And there is some extreme skips, there is some sound sculptures. And to me, it sounds like you captured the absurdity of what we're watching in the way you wrote the music. Is that a good guess, or?
It's a very good guess. I take it as a big compliment, because of course that is one of the goals for this composition. The words they are written by T.T. Thomas Krag, the poetry slammer that I introduced earlier. Talks about the word absurd. Think for a moment about the word. Think for a moment about the world. Think about the fact that we are treating each other and the planet in an absurd way, and that had to come into the music as well. So the string quartet that you refer to is actually the cellist who's on this album, Henrik Dam Thomsen, amazing cellist. He's the principal cellist of the Danish Royal Symphony Orchestra, and a very good old friend of mine, where we've been playing together since we were teenagers. He's an amazing musician, very open and spirited, and super virtuos. So the string quartet is actually him dubbing himself. So it's 4 cellos. So to kind of push the idea of the claustrophobic vibe there is to the fact that when you discover how absurd we treat each other in the world, then what can we do about it? I'm very happy about your analysis of it, and I will take it as a compliment, definitely.
Right. Well, you know, it's always tricky. People are thinking about how do you translate vision into music? And of course, it's not a direct translation because it's a different language we're using. Totally. That's why we're using music.
Exactly.
But, you know, it's an interesting thought experience to see how does that translate back into our emotions and what we take away from it.
And for this project as well, and for the album and for the cover and booklet, we were allowed to use pictures taken by Jan Graup, as I introduced earlier, the photographer who had been to Ukraine. So pictures from Ukraine, from the war scene in Ukraine, is part of this album, as well as a cover. The photograph on the cover of this album is actually a picture that Jan Graup took, I think not far from Kharkiv in Ukraine. And it's taken from the third floor in a house that had been totally bombed. And he's in the house on the third floor, looking out on a totally crushed and bombed area. And the only thing still standing in the apartment on the third floor is the piano. And that is also like super absurd. And it almost looks like somebody staged this photograph. But this is just the reality, the absurd reality of the war in Ukraine, and of war as a subject that has been accompanying humanity always. And apparently always will, unfortunately.
I think I saw that picture because I remember as a pianist. Yeah, I remember that.
And it's really heavy, really.
It's very heavy.
Absurd, but it's beautiful.
It's all the debris on the piano.
It's beautiful, and it's terrible at the same time. It's really heartbreaking. And also, it also sends a signal that there is hope, because music, art, which is love, will conquer everything, hopefully, in the end. That's, anyway, my hope, our hope. And sometimes you can actually get a bit in doubt, but I hope that that music will persevere.
Let's have a listen and think about this.
Yes.
This is called Absurd, from the album Story of Mankind, a Requiem, and it's composed by my guest today, Benjamin Koppel, who you'll also hear on saxophone. excerpt from a new double album, Story of Mankind, a Requiem, by my guest today, Benjamin Koppel. We had a lot of deep conversations about war and the absurdity and the pictures and how it was inspired. But we're going to switch gears here for a minute and talk about another album. Because if I did my math right, you said you had 70-something albums since 92. That makes about 2 a year.
Well, some years I released 6 albums. So
oh my goodness. Right, double and triples then too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But this one is Time Again. This is actually a collaboration with your dad, I believe. So
yes.
We haven't asked you. You just said you have this famous Danish music family. Now you have to tell us who that all is.
Well, yeah, that's another long story. I'll try to keep it short. My grandfather, it was a pianist and a composer and a very dear friend of mine and a fantastic grandfather, Herman Koppel. And David Koppel, and he was himself a student of the Danish national composer Carl Nielsen, who's kind of the most famous Danish composer ever, a classical composer. So my grandfather was a pianist and composer, and he had 4 children, the youngest being my father. All of those 4 children became musicians and composers within the classical world mainly, but my father and his brother Thomas, they were classical wonder kids in the 50s when they grew up, but then in the 60s they made a pop rock band which had the name Savage Rose, which became a very, very famous band. They played all over Europe. They played Newport Jazz Festivals alongside the Sly and the Family Stone, Blood, Sweat and Tears, stuff like that in early 70s. And then my father went into more and more composing, but also keeping his instrument, the Hammond organ, alive with his group Bazaar, which he made with my 2 musical uncles, Peter Bastian and Flemming Quist Møller. And that became an institution in Danish music life for almost 40 years. It became the soundtrack of my childhood, really, because it was an amazing mixture of Balkan music, Cuban folklore, classical music, jazz. Everything was in there. The lineup was absurd because it was Hammond organ, cushion, and bassoon, electrified bassoon. But it worked, and it was totally a unique musical universe. So that's kind of what I was brought up with. And my mother, when I was a kid, she was a touring actor. So we were always on the road, either with my mom or my dad. So that's where I learned, the touring life, learned that it was fun. I never saw my parents really work. I always saw them having fun. They played either theater or music, and the word to play, the verb to play is really at the point of it, because they were always playing. And of course, the kids, I have 2 bigger sisters, 2 older sisters, we were always like just sucked into this universe and just wanted to be a part of it, and was accepted as equals from very young. So that is kind of where it all came from. And me and my father, we've always been working together. We made a long list of projects together. We've had a trio with different drummers for many years that have been playing concerts like for 35 years, since I've always played saxophone when I was 13 years old, I began playing. Then we formed this trio. And we've also included each other in various and many different projects. I brought him in for a session I did with Miroslav Vitus, original founding member of Weather Report, I made an album with. And Anders, for instance, he also composed a concerto for a symphony orchestra, and the trio I have with bassist Scott Colley and drummer Brian Blade. So we always collaborate on very many different layers and levels. And with this new album, Time Again, we went back to the organ trio formation, which we've been working together with, in since I was 13, as I said. So it's almost 40 years now. And in this new trio setting, we brought in my very dear friend and close collaborator, Brian Blade, who I've been playing with for 12, 14 years, something like that. And this trio is just like, it's about the musical communication, about the spur of the moment, about swing, groove, melodics, outbursts from the heart, and just about really transmitting love through music and familyhood through music, because Brian is like family as well. So it is like just family coming together and having a great time together. That's what this music is about.
That's how it sounds like, because that first one we're going to listen to, Puerto Rican Rumble, right? Let's go and have a party.
Yeah, it's kind of very much, I don't know if we can say the opposite of the War Requiem, Story of Mankind, but this is where all the hope hopefully comes in, because for me, both sides are there, the despair about the atrocities, but also the hope for humanity, hope for things getting better. And with this trio, with Brian Blade and my father, Anders Koppel, we certainly, go on the waves of hope in the music.
Let's have some hope and let's give it a listen. This is Puerto Rican Rumble, a selection from the album Time Again by my guest today, Benjamin Koppel, who you'll hear on saxophone, and then you'll hear Anders Koppel on the Hammond B3 and Brian Blade on the drums. that was a track entitled Puerto Rican Rumble from a new album, Time Again. And you heard my guest today, Benjamin Koppel, on saxophone, together with his father, Anders Koppel, on Hammond B3 and Brian Blade on drums. We're actually going to listen to the title track, Time Again, and I hear some rapping going on. You know, sometimes people also talk about the Nordic concept. Let's just talk a little bit about the fusion of styles here that is okay.
Well, for me, you know, my grandfather, he told me when I was very young, when I was a kid, he told me there's only two types of music. There's good music and bad music. That's how it is. And for this reason, I love all kinds of music. I love classical music and every different aspect of classical music, from Bach to Stravinsky, Bartok, Ligeti, whatever. I love all kinds of jazz, from Armstrong to Coltrane, Ornette, whatever. Pop, soul music, I don't have any preferences at all. My first album that I ever bought as a kid was an LP with Dolly Parton, whom I love. I don't have any, you know, genre preferences. I just want to, you know, dive into good music, and thankfully there's so much good music. So for me, it's always been natural just to try to combine all my influences and inspirations in the music that I do, and it's in my voice somewhere, all these different aspects of music and art that I've collected and been inspired by. And with Time Again, I don't know if it has a certain Nordic feel. Probably other people should hear if they can hear it in there. But of course, I'm from Copenhagen, I'm from Denmark, from Scandinavia. This is where I come from. It has a, you know, a natural base in my music as well. But all the inspirations from European, African, and American music and so on, I've been listening to a lot to Arabian music when I was a kid, mainly due to my father's work in Bazaar that I told you about, because they listened to Kulthum and Fairuz, and I was always tripping on these singers and this music. It's all part of who I am as a musician, as a composer. On this title track, Time Again, my dear friend, rapper Alagami, is on. He's an amazing musician, fantastic rapper, and he is the most eloquent guy I know. His vibe was just perfect for this setting. So when we were in the studio, we felt that this track, exactly this track and this track only, could benefit from bringing in his amazing talent. So I just called him up when we were in the studio, and half an hour later he came in and we just recorded this in the first take, and that was it. So this is really also an example of the spur of the moment and how the music creativity is kind of, when it comes together and everything just fits, then it just becomes something that hopefully could be relevant for the people as well.
So let's dive right in. And this is the title track, Time Again, from the new album, Time Again, by my guest today, Benjamin Koppel, who you'll also hear on saxophone.
Come again, sit. Panga, papa, panga, panga. Let me switch over to the tongue. Let me feed you with a trigger. Let me turn around and give you that type of figure. This is the Mobius loop with the jazzy troop. And as we swoop down, when I look around, rocking with the crown, let's bounce for the remedy, the melody, the rhythm that be telling me music is medicine for the soul. Never felony, no felony. So let's just move on. Cause like the man said, it's time to groove on. This is that love that will rise above some of the things that you got going over back to push and shove. One phone in to crack that dream. Now all we got now is this team. It's the music for the masses. I want you to use it. I'm doubling up for this love duty. Hope to God I get something that make me feel in the mood for a cutie. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Until it's time again. I let it go. Let it. I let it go. Until it's time again. Back on the microphone, I need to rhyme again. Try to make it a little quicker, baby. And somebody catching that time again. The seconds turn to minutes, the minutes turn to hours. I take it in the middle, baby, and I show you all my goddamn powers. But this is not the potential that might turn kinetic. When I be rocking the microphone, I keep it low prophetic. Freestyle fanatical, K Diddy City for life. A cutting like blade on the drums. Don't make me say knife, it's what we're doing. We don't wanna ruin. We keep it fluid. You knew that we gonna do it. One for the jam, for creation. Come on, but no relation. Let's party, let's party, let's party. Mio Mayo, hit it with the trio, the trio. So what you see, yo, just the groove. Time again, rhyme again. Come on. again. I think it's time again. That's right. Time again. It's tick-tock, time again. Time for me to pick up a big rock and just rhyme again. Roll, roll, roll down, cause I know you got soul. It's time again. Tick-tock. It's time again.
That was Time Again, the title track from the new album Time Again by my guest today, Benjamin Koppel. Boy, we had some conversations in a lot of different directions.
That's true.
But, you know, that fits in on who you are. I haven't even asked about the books and the other things.
We'll do that another time, probably.
So I don't even dare to ask, but I still will. So where can people find all your music and what's next?
First of all, most of my music is available on the different streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, and so on. And it's also, a lot of it is available, of course, on CDs, but a lot of it is also available on LPs. And what's next? Well, I'm going to release a new album in September with a new group that we formed last year called Portable Infinity, with two Swedish amazing musicians, Magnus Öström, the drummer from EST, the amazing trio, pianist Jakob Karlsson, Swedish amazing pianist, and my dear friend Scott Colley on bass. So we have a quartet and a new album coming out entitled Portable Infinity. I was just in the studio 2 weeks ago recording a piece with symphony orchestra. Wrote this novel 2 years ago, which became a huge success, which is great. And for this novel, I also wrote 9 songs. And these songs I've been recording with this wonderful singer, Frederik Wedel, who's also on Story of Mankind, and Aalborg Symphony Orchestra. So that's going to be released in the fall as well. And right now I'm also finishing my new novel, which hopefully will come out in the fall as well. A bunch of major new releases is coming out in the fall. And right now I'm in the middle of my jazz festival. And when that's over, I'm going to take a few weeks off, just focusing on getting my book finished. So I'm always working on new projects. I have too many ideas.
So the best thing is to go benjaminkoppel.com or a way to stay updated?
BenjaminKoppel.com exists and it's just being updated fairly often. And also my production and company and record label, Cowbell Music. So Cowbell Music is where they kind of, get the message out there as well. So, and I'm also both on Instagram and Facebook. And so we try to keep the things updated. Sometimes I'm a little too productive and then get a little behind, but try to manage.
That's a great problem to have.
This is one of the years where I actually released 6 albums.
There's a lot of things. So Benjamin Koppel with 2 P's, Koppel. Find it, find the streaming, find the Cowbell Music and just try to stay on top if you can.
Exactly.
We'll listen to one more from the Time Again album, which is entitled Blind Man. And I really appreciate you taking your precious time out today to talk and share.
Such a pleasure to talk to you, Monica. It's such a pleasure to be on the show. And for Blind Man, I can just add that this is a piece that my father wrote. And he originally wrote this for the concerto that I mentioned briefly earlier, concerto for trio and symphony orchestra that he wrote for me, Scott Colley, and Brian Blade. And this concerto is entitled Mulberry Street Symphony. And it's an amazing piece. It's also a double CD, double album, and it's inspired by the pictures that Jacob A. Riis, Danish photographer, took in the last part of the 19th century in New York. He was famous for the book How the Other Half Lives, and he depicted the poverty of New York immigrants around this turn of the century. This concerto is an amazing piece, and because me and Brian, we love the piece so much, we asked Anders, let's do a trio version of this piece. So that's what's on the Time Again album, the organ trio with my father, Anders, and Brian Blade and myself.
Fantastic. So I can't wait to hear this, and we'll close out with Blind Man from the new album, Time Again. And my guest today, Benjamin Koppel. And thank you again for joining us, and good luck with all those projects.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I hope to see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Talking Jazz today. My guest was composer, saxophonist, author Benjamin Koppel.
You can hear Talking Jazz every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Mondays at 7 p.m. on WETF 105.7 in South Bend, Indiana, or online at jazzradiowetf.org, and Fridays at 8 p.m. on WICR 88.7 Indianapolis. Previous shows are also on my YouTube channel, Monika Herzig, MonikaHerzig. Please subscribe to the Talking Jazz playlist. Thank you for listening.